We were doing a fundraiser, and a guy came over, and he looked at me kind of like almost a bit, do you really think you can swim around this island? And I remember sort of looking back at him and saying, do you think if my life depended on it I could swim around the island? He's like, well, yeah, maybe, I guess so. I said, well, I think it's more important than that to me. And he just like stopped and like took that in and ended up sponsoring us, I think, $5,000 or something. Ridiculous, because they realised that there was this much deeper purpose. It wasn't just a swim. They could tell that this crazy guy actually believes in what he's doing, and he's going to achieve it.
Today's guest on Success on the South Coast is Oly Rush, an environmental campaigner who takes on crazy ultra swimming challenges, all in the name of raising awareness of plastic pollution.
We did a 100-mile swim of the Jurassic Coast, and it made me realise how we can capture people's attention and then focus them on the plastic and the mess that we're making to hopefully make a difference.
We talk about The Grand Swim, a new documentary charting Oly's world record attempt and biggest challenge to date.
The mission was to swim around the Cayman Islands. The biggest challenge was the scale of it, the size of the island. There was so many little factors as well that built up, made it difficult. The salt, the sun, even the temperature. I wasn't too worried about the sharks, but we did have to take that threat seriously.
Spending all of that time in the water has given Oly plenty of time to reflect on the true meaning of success and happiness.
A flat, calm ocean. There's no ripples in it or anything. And that, for me, is that content. That's happiness for me.
Oly is a real-life South Coast superhero whose passion and purpose has led to one of my favourite stories of success on the South Coast so far.
The most important thing is to have a purpose, is to have a reason why you're doing it. If you've got a solid purpose to why you want to achieve something, then I think we can all achieve way more than what we think we're capable of.
Welcome to a sunny new podcast where I'll be speaking to people from the arts, business and beyond, and shining a light on their stories of success on the South Coast. Welcome, Oly. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, man. It's great to be here.
So, as you know, I recently watched the documentary film The Grand Swim. Absolutely loved it. It's such an amazing story. Can't wait to talk to you about all of the endurance swimming, the movie, all the environmental work you do. But before we get to all that good stuff, I thought we'd dive right in at the deep end, and I'd like to understand, what are you passionate about?
So anyone who knows what I get up to probably comes across. I just love the ocean. I'm just passionate about protecting that, really. I just love being around it. Ever since I was really small, our holidays would be down in Cornwall and we'd be camping by the sea, and I just fell in love with it, just listening to that noise of the waves crashing against the rocks and things like that, and just playing in the rock pools, looking at all the little creatures. And I just fell in love with it. It's just such an amazing place.
Yeah, we're so lucky to live down here, aren't we, along this coastal area as well. So it's hard not to fall in love with it when you're a pool boy.
Yeah, exactly. It's just surrounded by it. And it's an awesome place.
And like you say, I remember watching Rush, your short film that was made, I think, in 2022 or something. Really great film. And that was about cleaning up the coast. You talk about from a very early age, everything was focused around swimming.
Yeah.
So I just wondered, take us back a little bit to your childhood and describe those early memories, and it's really fueled your passion. Yeah,
100%. We were competitive swimmers when I was younger. So we were in a pool swimming up and down before school, from the age of 6 years old. And then after school, we'd go swimming as well. Competitive swimming is such, you have to be really focused. And I think it was difficult at that age probably, but our mum would get us down there, bless her, in her dressing gown, I would imagine, me and my brother. And I think because you're always in the water, it's just such an amazing feeling. It just calms me down. It's a really nice spot to be in. So then that obviously transferred into the sea. I started taking up a bit of surfing or bodyboarding when I was young, when we were on holiday down in Cornwall and Devon. And I just remember spending all day in the sea, and I'd borrow a wetsuit that was too big for me, and I'd just be on this bodyboard, no real idea what I was doing, just catching little waves. And it's just such a special place. And I think it was that really young start of doing the competitive swimming and just becoming obsessed with water, which transferred over to the sea. Luckily for me, I think it was a real gift, to be honest, to be able to fall in love with something that's there, that's natural and it's free.
Yeah.
So yes.
Oh, amazing. So as people probably know from the title of the podcast, one of the key themes we talk about is success. What is it and what does it mean to an individual? I've always wanted, one of the missions of this podcast is kind of to debunk the myth, that you got to chase like the material things in life. A lot of people, the way it's portrayed in social media these days, that's what it looks like to youngsters, I guess. So I also think it's really interesting how the meaning of success changes over time. Like what you think of, in your 20s might be different as you get a bit older. And I think reading your story, you're a really great example of that, because when I was doing my research, I heard you talking about you getting to the point where you were working like 6-7 days a week as a plasterer, going home, working on your own house, chasing the money, the material possessions and that, and asking yourself whether you're ever going to be satisfied with what you got. And I just wondered, you had an experience which kind of sent you in a different direction, I think, at Chapman's Poole.
Yeah.
I just wondered whether you could tell us a little bit about that moment where you decided to ditch the 9-to-5 and follow your passion.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was definitely the turning point. And that led to loads of other little things falling into place, which has got me to where I am now, in a place where I'm not chasing. It doesn't interest me, shiny stuff anymore. And it did used to. I used to want to have a nice van, whether that was to impress other people I don't know at the time, or whether it was just to make me happy, thinking that these things they do bring happiness. But I think it went down to Chapman's Poole. I was in a bit of a desperate place, as you said there. I was working 6 to 7 days a week. A lot of people do. A lot of people have to pay the bills. I'm not sure why I was doing it. I was just in this snowball of trying to be sort of satisfied with life and happy, and I wasn't. And I remember getting home, being in the flat, and I'd be working till God knows what time in the evening, back up the next day, going to work, chasing. And I thought to myself, right, I need to have a break. I need to have a day off. So I grabbed the surfboard. I'd always heard of this little spot. I thought there might be a wave down there. There isn't. Anyone watching, there's never a wave there. And I got down there, walked across this long field, and I got my first glimpse of Chapman's Poole. Just an absolutely stunning spot, and it was flat. There was like a tiny little ripple. I was like, great. And at that point I was like, should I just chuck my surfboard back in the van, go home? There's loads of stuff I can do. I've got tons of work I need to be doing at home, or I could go and earn some money. But something was like, no, come on. So I all the way back to the van, chucked the board back, walked back down this long hill down to Chapman's Poole. And I kind of went over into the corner. I sat by this little waterfall, and I just sat there, and I just was like, this is cool. It's different. I'm slowing down for a minute. What is this? I feel alive all of a sudden. And I saw there was this fishing crate that had washed up, and I just was like, pick that up. So I picked it up, and I started walking along, and I picked something else up, and about an hour had passed. I didn't even realise, and I'd filled up this crate. And it was just it was definitely the turning point for me. It was like I realised the mess that we were making as humans, but because of all of our grasping mind. I think we've got grasping minds, and it was just that turning point of realisation of how much of a problem it was with the plastic. So it wasn't just me that was in a desperate place, feeling quite low, but the ocean was kind of crying as well. It was chucking all this stuff back out at us. And it was a turning point, and I started from then building into doing more and more beach cleans and all the rest of it, and it was a big moment for me. That was definitely the turning point.
Yeah, and like you say, that really was the beginning, right, of a whole nother chapter. And you went from doing the beach cleans into the endurance swims for raising awareness about the plastic pollution. What gave you the idea to start doing the swims, and the first one in particular, which was swimming the length of the Jurassic?
That was an awesome swim. It was going back to that. It was that turning point of the realization that I actually think I need to slow down in order to be happy, in order to sort of be calm and content and be able to live a life that was going to be meaningful. So slow down. I've gone from 100 miles an hour to trying to slow down. And then all of a sudden I've met these really cool people doing these beach cleans. I met a guy called Roy Beale, big shout out to him, from Clean Jurassic Coast. I put a call out on social media saying, I've collected all this rubbish, I really need a help. I was kind of flapping a little bit at this point. I was like picking all this stuff up, it's washing in quicker than I can pick it up. And Roy came down. He didn't have a boat, but he had a kayak, and it turned out he was quite into swim support. And I hadn't done any like long swims. I say that now. I've done peer-to-peer and things like that, which are big swims. I'm not taking anything away from those. But I wanted to do something that was going to capture some attention of, and be able to get a bigger audience. And we decided to swim from, I think it was Ringstead to Chapman's Poole, which would have taken us, I thought that was going to be a huge swim. So we did it, and I got out at the end, and I was like, Roy, I reckon we can go further. Should we do something crazy? And we got down, we sat down, had a chat, and we said, well, let's try and swim the length of the Jurassic Coast. And Roy is this is where it goes to needing other people to help you do these goals. Like, I couldn't have done it without Roy and all the planning and support. I would have jumped in, probably been swimming against the tide and given up after 5 minutes. But Roy got his map out, and he was as enthusiastic as I was in his own way. So he was planning all the tides. He's like, right, we'll start here. We're going to set it off at this time to catch the tide. So it was really lucky to have Roy's help, and we set off and we did this. We did a 100-mile swim of the Jurassic Coast, and it made me realise how we can capture people's attention and then focus them on the plastic and the mess that we're making to hopefully make a difference.
Yeah, no, it's an absolutely incredible story, and like you said, raised a lot of money as well, which is brilliant. And then after that, just to run through everything else you've done, like you did the Isle of Wight next, I think.
Yeah, that was
fastest solo non-stop swim around the island.
Yeah, but I had a wetsuit, so I was cheating. I think that was what a lot of people think, because with a wetsuit, it's not quite the same. But yeah, no, that was an incredible swim. I got to the end of the Jurassic Coast swim, and I've said this a few times, it feels like I'm repeating myself. But someone tapped me on my shoulder and pointed over to the Isle of Wight, and they said, "Oh, you'll swim around that next." I was like, "Don't be daft. That's a proper swim." And it planted a seed, and I sort of reached out to a chap called Scott Dawson, who had swum it. I googled. I literally, as we all do, when you get an idea in your head, you chuck it in Google or any other search engine, and it came up with this guy called Scott Dawson who'd swam it. And I thought, I wonder if I could get a hold of him. And I managed to find his details, got in touch with Scott. And after a conversation about 10 minutes, he stopped. He said, "Ollie, I get people phoning me all the time wanting to swim around the Isle of Wight." He said, "It sounds like you've got half a chance." And he believed in me, and we built this amazing team. And like you said, we got round in an insanely quick time because we had the tides. We had a chap called Scott Dawson, who's an amazing sailor. He's got, I don't know how many world records for sailing. And they were so meticulous with the tide planning. So I whizzed around the island. It was only the last hour that was super tough. I was against the tides.
And you did it in like 10 hours quicker than the previous record or something.
Yeah. But again, that was a skins record, so I'm not taking anything away from that. But I had a wetsuit on, so it's cheating slightly, but it was still a big swim. It was 15 hours 9 minutes, and And I got to the end, and some guy handed me a beer, and I hadn't had a beer for 6 months because I was training. It was great to have but all these people came out onto the beach at 2:00 in the morning, down at Seaview Yacht Club, onto the little slipway, cheering us in. We had an interview with Sky News. It was crazy. It all started snowballing because I think we kind of realised that we were able to, with the amount of childish enthusiasm I had, we could achieve these big goals.
Yeah. And were you doing it full time by this point? Had you kind of moved away from the day job?
No, but saying that, we had some good sponsors, so I was able to not work full time. I was able to do perhaps 2 days a week working or 3 days a week working, and it's so difficult to do the training swims.
Yeah.
And hold down a job. So anyone who's swum the channel and is trained to do that, fair play, 'cause at the same time as holding a job, because I was self-employed, so I could juggle stuff.
Yeah.
I could bring a customer and say, look, it's amazing weather today, I fancy doing a big swim, I'll be in tomorrow. And I kind of juggled it like that. So I did have financial support from the sponsors, which was amazing. It kind of covered my bills, and then anything else was, food on the table, money sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it was getting to a point where I thought, I wonder if I could do this as not a living. I think you'd have to be much more media savvy than me to make a living out of this kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, it was super cool, and we were getting people excited, and that was the thing. We were raising lots of money, and we'd bought a boat with one of the swims that we did. I think it was the first swim. We bought this little boat to get in and out the coves, picking all the plastic up. So it was snowboarding. Amazing. Yeah, it was really cool.
What did your friends and family think when you went back after that day at Chapman and said, right, this is my mission now?
Yeah, it was, and I'd love to say it was a big shiny moment and it was happy. I actually went quite downhill, because it was that realisation of the mess we're causing. I've been caught up in this bubble of working 100 mile an hour, chasing money, chasing these shiny things. And it was a big slump, to be honest. It took a long time. It took a big toll on my relationship, because I was, everywhere we go, it would be beach cleaning. And it sounds funny, really, because literally I would take a bag from everywhere I go. I'd be picking stuff up. I became obsessed with it.
Yeah.
I went into this real depression with it. So it was super tough. So it was those guys that got me out of it. It kind of snowballed. It was a funny time in my life, but they were really supportive is the answer to the question. They were really supportive. I was super lucky to have friends and family around me that kind of were like, Ollie, slow down a little bit, because I always go into things 100 mile an hour, as you can probably tell. So they were really supportive. It was awesome. Good guys.
That's really good. I can imagine it is easy to sort of sink into a bit of darkness, though, because when you start reflecting on that kind of stuff, if you kind of start obsessing over like that, it's easy to get to quite a dark place, thinking about humanity, isn't it? Yeah,
and that's exactly what happened with me. It was not just the plastic. I was looking at what we were eating and the impacts that was having, and it was like this whole realisation of the damage we cause. It's a beautiful, beautiful planet we live on, and we all have an impact. But it was like, I didn't realise the scale of the impact that I was personally having through my actions. But then as I learned and went on through my journey, I realised how through little changes I could make a big difference and feel more content. So in a selfish way, I was able to feel happier by making these little changes as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's talk about the Grand Swim then. We talked about some of your other events before this one. This was an unbelievable one. For those who haven't seen it, could you just explain a little bit about what the film's about?
Yeah, so the film basically covered. We took a GoPro over to the Cayman Islands with us. We teamed up with Grizzly Productions, and he'd become a mate of mine at that point. He'd created they had created the Rush documentary that we spoke about earlier, and they said, look, it sounds amazing what you're doing, slightly crazy, like everything you decide to do. Can you take a camera? Do you mind filming it? And we'll see if we can make something out of it at the end. There was no real plan. They gave us all this cool kit, nice GoPro and all the rest of it. So we just went out there and filmed everything. And the documentary covers that. It covers the journey beforehand. It covers whilst we're there, what we've been up to, all the whole swim, the amount that goes into that swim, and all the ups and downs that went with it. It was It's an awesome documentary, I think.
And I don't know if we've actually mentioned, but this is about swimming around the Cayman Islands, right?
Yes.
That was the mission.
The mission was to swim around the Cayman Islands. So I'd actually said it on that Sky News interview. The guy said to me, "What's next?" Cool Scottish guy. What's next? It was great. And I was like, I'd like to swim around the Cayman Islands. Who knows if that's possible? And the reason that had come about is my dad had contacts in the Cayman Islands. He'd been working there before. I had a friend out there. So we knew we could have a base, somewhere to stay. We were put up by Moritz, this amazing hotel room that would have wiped my bank account clean on a week. But they covered us the whole time. And we had this contact out there, and we wanted to. The idea was, let's do something huge and ridiculous that we're not sure if we can achieve in order to shine a light on this issue of plastic pollution, which we know is really prevalent in the Cayman Islands. Because I had a friend out there who ran, a few friends out there who ran Plastic Free Cayman, and I'd seen their posts and I'd seen the devastation on the beaches. The plastic was just washing in, unbelievable. And I thought, let's go over there, try and do something crazy, capture the attention, see if we can get, maybe we can speak to the government, maybe we can bring some changes in. Let's do something big and crazy and go from there. And that's what we did, and that's what the documentary shows. So
yeah, it's an incredible film. Thoroughly recommend it to anyone who hasn't watched it. It was estimated to take like 30 hours, I think you were planning for. It ended up taking closer to 37 hours. What was the most challenging aspect?
Oh, the most challenging, because there was so many brutal parts. It's really difficult to choose one. I think the most challenging aspect, I just think it was the enormity of it, the size, and the fact that I had gone into it so naively, to be honest. Otherwise we wouldn't have started. I went into it really naive. Yeah, I can swim around it. Just, chuck me in the water. As long as someone's throwing bananas at me and feeding me drinking water every now and again, I can keep swimming. So the biggest challenge was the scale of it, the size of the island, the tides. It just was bigger than me, and that's why it took such a big team to make it happen. There was so many little factors as well that built up, made it difficult. The salt, the sun, even the temperature. It's warm sea, but when you're in the sea for 37 hours, it gets cold when you're tired.
I love the fact you haven't even mentioned the shark-infested waters.
We're not allowed to use the word infested because they live there. No, obviously there was sharks. Wildlife was an issue. I wasn't too worried about that. Again, I don't worry too much. I think if something you can't control, the things you can't control, it's good not to worry about them. I'm saying that now. I worry about everything in life, but the sharks didn't seem to bother me for some reason. There's reef sharks there. There's not loads of big sharks there, really. Very occasionally you get a hammerhead. I think So I wasn't too worried about the sharks, but we did have to take that threat seriously. We had some shark shields which emit this electronic pulse to scare them off and things. And it was obviously a big concern for the team, keeping me safe at night. Especially through the reef where the divers go down and see the sharks. They're not used to someone splashing around on the water, so it was a bit of a scare at times. Yeah, I did get bumped by something. I'm not sure. Because I've said that so many times, I'm not sure whether I've made it up in my own head or if it actually happened. But
so I think, what was it? Your previous longest time in the water up to that point was 15 hours. Suddenly you're up to 37 hours. Really? How did you feel walking out the water when you completed it?
It was ridiculous when you say those figures out loud. I think the biggest training swim I did for the Cayman Islands was a 10-hour swim, because my shoulder got to a point where it was the benefit of swimming a bigger swim to push myself was outweighed by the risk of injuring my shoulder. So it was a big jump from 15 hours in a wetsuit with the tide to suddenly go in skins with all the elements, and it was crazy, really. And I think it was naive. I'm going to use that word lots today. I can't believe my legs still worked. I remember seeing everyone on the beach, and you could hear the screams and stuff, and the banner. It was crazy. And I think all of that, it built up this I don't know what adrenaline is it that just hides or masks any pain. And I stood up and I remember thinking, oh, look at my legs work. I'm not wobbly. I've done peer-to-peer before and been wobbly. So how I did 37 hours, got out and walked, I still don't know.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I said to you off camera, like, I chatted to my sister about it, who'd also watched it, and we were like, how did this guy walk out of the water? Like, we imagined you being, like, literally having to be carried out at the end of it.
I think as well, I knew my family were worried, so I wanted to, like, because, you know, like an hour before that, they were threatening to call the swim, or a couple of hours before that, because my tongue had swollen up. I couldn't really speak properly. I was saying I can't breathe, you know, the noises I was making. So I knew that they were all really worried, so I wanted to get out and kind of be like the joke. You know, I'm a bit of a joker anyway, so I did a little dance. They'd put a stretcher there for me, and I ended up walking up to the stretcher and going, who's this for then? And picking the back. Like, I was being really silly, but it was the adrenaline, I think, just kept me going.
So you made it out of the water, but it's, I mean, I've done nothing like this, but I know even from doing like runs or like marathons, the day after is always a lot worse. So how long did it take you to recover?
Physically, probably a couple of weeks, I think. So directly after the swim, we went to hospital. I had some intense, like crazy pains in my shoulder. I think it turned out it was just cramp because I stretched it and it stopped it. But really, really painful shoulders. I had nasty sunburn, despite trying to use the best stuff that was reef safe and all that. It was really difficult to keep the sun from just scorching my, you know, I've got ginger hair, man. I'm not designed to be out in the sun for a long time. In the Caribbean Sea, I'm not designed for it. And my tongue, I couldn't eat properly for a couple of weeks. No solid food. Everyone else is eating chips and having a great time. I'm sipping smoothies, despite how lovely they were. And it took a long time, but mentally it took a year. I'm probably still not fully recovered now. I remember we went back to Cayman a year later, and I got in the sea in the Cayman Islands, and just the salt, because it's quite intense. It's different. It's different there. It sounds silly, but the sea tastes different there. And I nearly couldn't swim. We were supposed to be doing some training swims for my next swim, and I nearly couldn't swim because it was just that reminder, I think. My body was scared, and it was like almost, I guess, PTSD really from doing something that took me to a point where I was probably quite ill. I was in hospital, wasn't very well. Scared my body and mind a little bit to do another one.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah. I also wonder, like, you know, anyone who's done any kind of big event or something, like, it's always a strange feeling when it's over, right? Yeah. And you've done it. Like, your whole life is revolved around this thing for months, and you've got the excitement and the build-up, and then suddenly it's done. How did you come back to reality after this incredible achievement? It
is such a drop. I think you hear people talk about it, you get a big drop afterwards. I've always got to be doing something. I've always got to have a goal or a focus or something going on that keeps my mind busy and on something that's productive. So it was really difficult, to be honest. I did have a bit of a slump, but because we'd raised so much money and because we'd achieved so much, I was able to, straight away we were looking at building a charity. I was back here. We were building a team up. We were doing more beach cleans. So I just kept myself. I think the key is just keep busy.
Yeah.
And
keep the momentum
going. And I set another goal fairly quickly.
Yeah.
I didn't know where, but I knew I was going to do another swim next year. So it was just that awareness that I'm, got to keep in shape, got to keep training.
Yeah.
Stopped it being too bad. But I think if you were to ask my missus, she'd disagree. She'd say there was a big slump.
What was the impact of the event on the Grand Cayman community? Because, like you said, you had the whole place kind of on your side. A lot of publicity and everything.
It was amazing, the support we had from over there, and we had. So the goal obviously was to raise awareness. The swim was a bonus, to be honest. If we got round, great, amazing. But the goal was to try and raise awareness and to try and get some benefit, some impact from doing the swim, from us all putting our, I shouldn't say lives on hold because we all wanted to be there doing it, but a lot of people didn't work and things to join in with the event. So we actually managed to get a meeting with the Cayman government over there, which was super cool. They had already had discussions with Plastic Free Cayman, about bringing some bans in place. Certain single-use plastic items are banning, so plastic bags, plastic cutlery, styrofoam, that sort of stuff. They were going to ban these items. That wasn't happening. I think the swim was almost like a stick that prodded them to, oh, hang on, we should be doing this. And they got us in. We had a big meeting. It was amazing. Apart from one of the ladies, she fell asleep whilst we were in there talking to them. Seriously. But they were going to ban these things, and they agreed to it. And we are 2-3 years down the line, and nothing's happened. So that is really difficult. I actually had a chat with one of the guys who runs Plastic Free Cayman now, and he's put an amazing post on their website and Instagrams about, we all did this crazy event in order to achieve something much bigger than just the swim, and we were promised it, and it still hasn't happened. Government love to make these promises, say the right things, and unfortunately they haven't come through with it. So it takes that shine away, and also it takes my energy away in a much smaller problem. It takes my energy away in order to do another swim. I can't keep doing these swims if we're going to not achieve anything. It's got to be a purpose to them.
Yeah, that's tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that conversation still ongoing then? Obviously, your mate out there is still fighting the good fight, and you mentioned you're hoping to get back out there. Are you going to reopen that conversation and get it back out on the table?
I mean, I'll do as much as I can. What can I, tag them in stuff? It's really difficult to know what action to take. But yeah, very much so. That is still on the table. They're still trying to push that ban through. And they keep reminding them that they promised it. And things are happening. There's a supermarket out there, Foster's. They've just stopped using the single-use plastic bags. It's all small steps, everything's still wrapped in plastic that's in the supermarket. But it's one step, and that's how it's hopefully we're going to start thinking that this stuff is, although it's amazing, it's incredible. Plastic's incredible. It does an amazing job, but it's the fallout it has. It's the effect it has on the ocean, on us as humans when it breaks down. It's it's something that I'm passionate around, protecting the ocean. So if we can get that ban in place, that's going to reignite, I think, my passion as well to be able to do another big swim.
Yeah, I mean, that would be incredible, wouldn't it, to be able to point to such a specific thing and say this had a direct impact to lead to something like that. That would be awesome. From a personal point of view, though, an incredible achievement, and earned you a place in the Guinness World Records. Yeah,
they popped us in the book, mate. That's quite cool.
So that was nice.
Yeah, and it was quite something more paperwork than realised. I had to have observers there that watched everything, and they wrote down all the feeds and everything like that. The best thing about the world record is the schools love it. So now when I go into a school, I talk to them about it, and I say, and then we did this swim, and I show them a little picture of the Guinness World Record, and then they start listening, they start engaging then because they're excited. And I say to them, it's purpose plus passion. There's no way I could have got around that island if it was just for a world record. There's no way. But because I've been into all the schools, talked to all those kids, told them the reason behind the swim, it gave me that extra energy that I needed to keep going. Because don't get me wrong, there were times during that swim that I could have easily got out. But it was the pain. I knew afterwards the pain would be much worse quitting than it would have if I just pushed on.
I wanted to talk to you about that actually, because I think there's some lessons for other people in this kind of in that kind of story in terms of resilience and, like you say, kind of motivation. So firstly, I mean, how do you mentally prepare yourself for going into something like that when you've got this massive challenge ahead?
I think the most important thing is to have a purpose, is to have a reason why you're doing it. If you've got a solid purpose to why you want to achieve something, then I think we can all achieve way more than what we think we're capable of. Like, I am not an athlete. There is no part of me that is athletic. I can swim relatively decent pace for a long time. It's slightly harder than walking. So I walked for 37 hours. That's the way I see it. So because I had such that solid goal, there was no way, no one was stopping me. I was going to swim around there, or they were going to pull me out. So if you can get that purpose, if you want to do a marathon, or you want to do something that no one's ever done before, I think the only way you can actually achieve that is if you've got something much, much deeper than just I'm going to be in the Guinness World Records, or people are going to be that won't get you. I don't think that'll get you through the dark times when you're literally hoping a shark's going to come up and bite you, because at times that's how rough I felt. I wanted something to come and stop the swim for me, but it didn't. Damn sharks. Yeah, so get yourself a passion, but you can't make those up either. It needs to be genuine.
Yeah, I read you say you're just super stubborn and super passionate. That kind of sums it up. Yeah,
I wasn't stopping. I got to tell a little story. There was a guy, we were doing a fundraiser, and a guy came over, and he looked at me kind of like almost a bit, do you really think you can swim around this island? And I remember sort of looking back at him and saying, do you think if my life depended on it, I could swim around the island? He's like, well, maybe, I guess so. I said, well, I think it's more important than that to me. And he just like stopped and like took that in and ended up sponsoring us, I think, $5,000. Was it ridiculous? Because they realised that there was this much deeper purpose. It wasn't just a swim. They could tell that this crazy guy actually believes in what he's doing, and he's going to achieve it. So
that is a great lesson for everyone, I think. And I was chatting to a friend of mine. We're both into running, and we often compare notes after doing like runs and that, and you kind of talk about the difficult times. And I was telling him about the challenges you did, kind of putting it into perspective, and we were kind of saying like it's one thing when you're running and you can see your kind of progress, but when you're in the water, your kind of sense of progress is completely distorted, right? Every time you look up, it looks like you've hardly moved when you're looking back at the coastline, right? And I just have to ask, like, how do you what's in your head when you're so mentally and kind of physically fatigued? Like, how do you keep pushing yourself on?
It's so difficult, and it is soul destroying. I think the one thing that I can't remember who said it, but it's just not. I was not looking towards the finish line. I was trying to be present in what I was doing. I'm swimming now. That's what I'm doing. When I get to the end, I get to the end. Don't get me wrong. When I could see the end and it wasn't getting any closer, that was really difficult, because there was a stretch 7 Mile Beach, and it's probably still 3 hour swim. That was really tough. But when I'm going and you've just got to be in the moment. You can't worry about the finish line. I was thinking about my next feed, to be honest. I would focus on the next stop. So I'd be swimming and I'd think, in a minute I'm going to get some more soggy banana or whatever it might be. So just not thinking about the end was what got me, I think, to the end. But also, the reason I was doing it.
Yeah. And I really liked, I think I heard you say somewhere that you were reciting 3 words: patience, purpose, and gratitude.
Yeah, I love those. And they just, you have got to be incredibly patient. And also I reminded myself at times that I am so lucky to be doing this swim. I've got this whole team that have given up so much of their own lives to join into an event, and just being grateful about being there and what I was doing. And yeah, those I like those. You reminded me of those 3 words. Yeah, good. I kept bringing them up at the swim.
Yeah. So you did literally have those in your head, kind of going round when you were in a dark time.
Tried to. Don't get me wrong. They were literally. Like I said, I wanted things to. There were points where I wanted something to come up and stop me from swimming. I wanted something to happen, because it was that difficult. I had one eye open. I was so tired. I was so underprepared for the swim. I hadn't put the training in. Like I said, I'd done a 10-hour swim before. That was my training, and it was just desperate at times. Like, I was just so depleted. My diet plan was horrendous. They had to go off and do and go shopping halfway through the swim. We had a land crew who would go off and they went and got some baby food sachet. They were just trying to get food into me, because I was just not. I was like, yeah, peanut butter and bananas, I can keep swimming. I'll swim as far as you want. The reality is you need more than peanut butter and bananas. You need all sorts of electrolyte. You need so much into it that I just was... It's hilarious looking back. I watch the film and think, anyone watching this now who is a proper swimmer is going to be like, Ollie, what are you doing?
That's brilliant. Sorry to interrupt the chat. Just a quick one to ask a favour. If you're enjoying this episode, then please rate, review or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Now back to the episode. So you kind of mentioned it, but that Grand Cayman swim ultimately led to the formation of your charity, Project Planet Earth. Can you tell us a bit about what the mission is with Project Planet Earth?
Well, this is the great thing. Like, someone said to me, what's your end goal for what you're doing with the plastic? And it'd be easy for me to say, oh, I want to ban all single-use plastic and for there to be no plastic in the ocean. Realistically, neither of those two things are probably going to happen in my lifetime. But what I would like to achieve is to just pass down my enthusiasm for the environment. So we're going into schools, talking to kids, and they come up at the end of it and they'll say, oh, it's just amazing. The parents will message me and say, oh, my kid came home really inspired. We're going to go out and do a litter pick. So it's just passing that on. That for me, that's the end goal. That's what we want to achieve, and just hopefully slow down the distraction, if you want, for want of a better word, of what our conveniently packaged lifestyles are causing.
So what can people do to get involved then?
I think it depends what you want to do. We run monthly beach cleans. Obviously, hopefully this is going to a big audience. People will be listening all over the place. So it's just thinking about what you're doing personally. What areas can you lessen your impact? So simple things. Use a water bottle. We don't think about it. I think the fact was something crazy like 300 bottles a year. The average person gets through. So just by taking a bottle, a reusable bottle every day, you're cutting that out. So just little things that you can do to stop. It's really difficult because everything that we buy is wrapped in plastic.
Yeah,
it's so difficult to live, even if you have these values, which might be, my values are to try and be a kind, caring human who has as least impact as possible. To live by those values is so difficult. It's conflicted all the time in my job. Every time I go to a shop to buy something, it's always wrapped in plastic. But it's then just thinking about we can recycle more. We can pick bits up. We can just be a good human, I think, and I think that will help in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. And I think funding as well, always a challenge for doing these events, right? I think the reality is there's a lot of cost to doing these big events. So what about local businesses? Like, any words for them? Hopefully there'll be someone watching and getting involved. I guess you're always looking for funding and sponsors and so on.
Yeah, 100%. So at the moment we spoke earlier, like trying to juggle a normal life, paying the bills, mortgage, all the rest of it, the training and the charity work. It is quite difficult. We do have some sponsors who are helping us with beach cleans and things at the moment. They're amazing, so shout out to Green Folk. They're awesome. But any local businesses that want to get involved, we're always looking to do, we can do group cleanups as well, but on a slightly larger scale for the swims, at the moment I am looking for a sponsor to take on my next challenge. Yeah,
which we will get to soon.
Yeah,
I want that exclusive for success on the South Coast. You mentioned them already a little bit, but part of this work is going into schools and so on. What kind of reaction are you getting?
Amazing. It's really great. So I need to be more proactive as well, reaching out to schools. Currently they reach out to us and say, would you like to come and do a talk? As the funding gets more, I'll be able to do more of those talks. But yeah, amazing reaction from the kids. I think it does come down to the swims, and they think, you can see that when I'm saying to them, okay, imagine if I've already been swimming for 2 hours before you've woken up. And then you brush your teeth, you go to school, you have your day at school, and I go, I'm still swimming. And then you go, you get into bed, you wake up in the morning, guess what? And they'll go, still swimming. It's great. So such a good reaction. And then I think they put to it, they're not silly. They know why I did it. We talk about the plastic pollution. And we get such a good reaction, and a lot of them they know so much as well already. Schools are on the ball. They've got eco clubs and things. So it's just fueling that passion. But it definitely is having an impact.
So do you feel optimistic when you see these kids reacting so positively?
I come away just full of joy and full of life again. I go into them all scared because every time I do a talk at school, I don't know, I get nervous about it. I think maybe some people love, don't they, going to do a talk or things. I actually find it quite difficult. But when I come away, I always feel energized. Yeah. And if we do a group beach clean, we did one recently in Dorchester from Damer's first school. And the turnout we had the next day was, I think it was like 50 kids turned up to do a beach clean. So they've all gone home and said, Mum, Dad, we want to go and do a beach clean. There's one on Sunday. And they come along and do their little pick, they're picking it up, running, and they're showing me all these bits that they found. And that's got to be, sparking a passion for them, I think. Yeah. And if they turn into environmentalists, then it's that effect, isn't it? It's that snowball effect. Yeah. I always say at the end of an assembly, I'm like, how many people are in this school? And they're 400 people. I say, imagine if every one of you made one small change that was going to have a better impact to the environment. That's massive. And then imagine if you then go on and inspire someone else to make it. That's how we're going to, fix this problem. Yeah. But so you've got to have hope, haven't you? Yeah. It'd be naive of me to say it's something it's a massive problem, isn't it? It goes back to I think the grasping. Humans, aren't we? We want to be successful. We want to have a certain level of comfort and all the rest of it, but it's just learning to slow down a little bit, I think, would make a big difference.
Yeah, I did think it's worth actually spending a little moment actually kind of talking about the scale of the problem, because it is, like you said, it is huge. And I got to be honest, until I did the research, I knew it was big, but when you start seeing the figures, it's scary. Like I read a stat on UNEP, United Nations Environment Programme, and they were saying every day the equivalent of 2,000 garbage trucks full of plastic are dumped into the world's oceans. When you start, the numbers are just too big to even think about. Like 1 in 3 fish caught for human consumption contain plastic. 8 million pieces of plastic pollution going into the ocean every day.
And it's crazy. It's scary, the amount. There's only, I think, years gone by, people think the ocean's massive. It's such a big, we can't damage the ocean. It's huge. You could tip what you want in there and it's not going to cause the reality is, over time, that the numbers that you talk about, they're absolutely insane amounts of plastic going into the sea. And it's all the chemicals that go with that plastic. It's all the fire retardants, the other bits that they put in with it. And all of that's breaking down from the sunlight. The fish are eating it, so we're eating it. It's landing on the corals. It's taking all the chemicals down to the bottom, destroying the coral reefs. Like, it's causing massive amounts of problem. And plastic pollution isn't it's not the only thing. That's the difficulty, isn't it? There's so many different aspects of our lives and the human life, the way we are in society, that are damaging the environment. But for me, plastic pollution is one we can all get involved with relatively easily, so we can all take action with that, and then I think wakes us up to perhaps other areas of our lives we can look at as well. But the numbers are scary, the amount of plastic that goes into the ocean.
I just wonder, like, what's your take? I mean, you've been doing all these events for a number of years now, going into schools. You've travelled to places like the Cayman and so on. What's your kind of take on where we're heading, and are you seeing any kind of signs of progress on your kind of journey? Yeah, definitely,
100%. It would be easy to focus on the fact that more plastic's going in the ocean every day exponentially. We could say that straight away, so that would extinguish any hope that there is. But the reality is there is also a lot of small changes, and it's those together that are worthwhile. So people are realising the damage. Shops are starting to use different types, like biodegradable bags that break down, compostable bags. So I think there's always a lot more we can be doing. Steps are being made, so there's and those steps together are going to add up and have a positive impact. Plastic cotton buds and straws and things. I know good old Donald Trump, love him or hate him, I'm not going to personally put my view out there on this podcast, but he was talking about plastic straws. We're not worried, they're not going to hurt sharks swimming around the ocean. I never know whether these things are AI or not with him. Anyway, and it's those small things that they are important. Banning plastic straws, it is important. because if we don't start somewhere, we're never going to start anywhere. So there is definitely hope, and it's happening.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. I read like a quote from one of the exec directors of UNEP, and he was saying we won't recycle our way out of the plastic pollution crisis. It needs more than that. He said it needed systemic transformation to achieve the transition to a circular economy.
Yeah.
And this idea of a circular economy, it kind of took me down a bit of a rabbit hole, kind of researching. I just wondered whether you'd heard of a local organisation based in Christchurch called Circular 11.
I have good friends with the Circular 11.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of our beach plastics will be going there more so now. Do quite a bit with them. They're really cool guys.
Yeah,
shout out to Connor.
I'm really glad you said that. I wanted to give him a shout out too, because I was at an event recently, and I heard Ben Gibbons, one of their founders, and he came along. And for those people that don't know, they've created this process of taking all of that plastic and actually, I don't know, they've developed a process where they create like lumber, like plastic lumber, haven't they? And they're building outdoor furniture, fencing, and so on. That kind of seems to be like a really positive way forward, seeing stuff like that.
It's awesome. Yeah, I love going there and seeing what they're up to. They're kind of locking away all that toxic plastic into something that's going to last for a very, very long time, rather than it going into landfill. As you were saying there, recycling our way out of the problem is definitely not the answer. It's almost like a get out of jail card for the manufacturers of plastic, really. Yeah, no, it's okay, we'll recycle it. Well, we know that doesn't work. Unfortunately, a lot of people won't wash the recycling that they put in the recycle bin properly. They put the wrong things in there, so it's all contaminated. There are so many different types of plastic as well, which make it incredibly difficult to recycle anyway. And then when it's been recycled once, a lot of the time you can't ever recycle it again. It gets shipped abroad, it gets burnt in illegal dump sites. So yeah, recycling isn't the answer, but at the moment it's the best we've got. But the guys at Circular 11, which I'm glad you mentioned as well, they're doing something different where they're able to use all this mixed stuff that would otherwise not be recyclable and lock it away in something so it's not getting into the ground or the soil or the ocean, you know. So they're doing an amazing job. Yeah,
and really cool. I mean, this is success on the South Coast. I mean, that is a real South Coast success story.
Yeah, you have to get them in.
Yeah, well, you can help connect me.
100%.
I definitely want to tell that story, get into more detail about that. But it's cool that you guys are already hooked up.
Yeah, they're really cool.
So you touched on it earlier. Let's talk about next projects and future plans. So you've already swum the length of the Jurassic Coast, set the record as the fastest person to go round the Isle of Wight, even though you said you feel like you might have cheated a bit. And you're the first to swim a Guinness World Record holder for the Grand Cayman swim. So don't keep me in suspense any longer. What's the next challenge?
I'm going to make you wait a minute because we missed one out. I swam around an island in Greece called Ithaca, which was a 20-hour swim. So that was a big swim as well. That was the year before last, which was a really challenging one because the first day I got there, I'm forced into buying my bottles in water. So there's this guy who's travelled over to Ithaca, to Greece, beautiful island, to go and raise awareness about plastic pollution. And there I am walking down the road with 6 bottles of water because there was no other option. So it conflicted straight away. But that was a really cool swim. And then I had a year off. I got married. Amazing time.
Congratulations.
Thanks, man. It was nice to slow down a little bit from the swimming all the time. Like, we didn't go on holiday because I was like, oh yeah, but I need to train. Is there a pool there? so that was tricky. So I had a bit of a slower year. And yeah, I'm looking at doing another one now. I've just started upping the training again. Yeah. This year, I would like to swim around the Isle of Wight with no wetsuit.
Okay, so skins.
Skins this time. I'd like to get around in a similar time. So it's a massive asking for me. So I've put a good 10 kilos on over the last 6 months.
Must be nice having an excuse to put weight on.
It is. It's difficult weighing up between being to a point where you're still healthy and able to stay warm in the sea with putting a bit of extra weight on it. Yeah, I'm juggling with it at the moment. It's quite tricky. Enjoying the process. So that's this year's plan.
When abouts do you think that might be?
It's going to be in the end of August when we got big strong tides, so I can cheat again, but with no wetsuit. The Isle of Wight has such strong tides there. You've got to plan it with the tides to give yourself the best chance of getting around, and to get around in the time we want to. Big spring tides, which is a double-edged sword really, because if you get to a point where you've got really strong tides with you, but then you could have really strong tides against you. So it is a really tricky one, the Isle of Wight. But luckily, I say we've got an amazing knowledge from previous swims.
Excellent. Are you putting the band back together? Are you getting the same team?
Yeah, I need to be more proactive for that. But yes, I've spoken to Scott, who's spoken to Brian. I'm hoping Roy's already mentioned that he wants to kayak. He kayaked the whole way last time. He sat in that kayak for 15 hours, 9 minutes. Wow. And I think it was harder for him than it was for me, to be honest. Just wedged in a kayak with cramp and all sorts. We're going to try and get a very similar team together. I'd love it if they can all get involved again.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And then I'd like to go, and this is very naive because we saw what happened when I swam for 37 hours, but I'd like to go for the longest non-tidal assisted swim, which will be 100. Currently, it will be about 150 kilometre swim non-stop. So it's going to take somewhere between 55 to 65, maybe. Like crazy swim.
So 150 kilometres. That's just 93 miles.
I don't know. Yeah. I work in kilometres. Yeah. So the Isle of Wight was 96 kilometres. So it's another half on top of that, but without the tides. So you'd think, 15 hours, that's fine. Half again, 22 hours or whatever. But it's not. It's going to be because you can't have the tide with you. So we're looking at different places where we can do that swim. Corinth Bay over in Greece, Mediterranean, nice temperature, not too many big fish, sadly, but good for me for doing the swim. So we're looking at a few different options doing that. But that's huge, to do a swim like that, we'd have to bag a very big sponsor. So they'd have to believe in my childish enthusiasm again. Yeah. And I'll need a lot of much more competent people around me to help make it happen.
What's the kind of plan? Are you in active planning for that though? Are you going out? Like, hopefully there'll be someone watching this, and we can help kind of get some sponsors coming your way. But when are you looking to do that?
I would like to do that next year.
Yeah.
So this year I'm building up the training in order for the Isle of Wight swim. So I'm actively looking to do that swim next year, and I hope we can get a sponsor that not only has the funds available to make a swim like that happen, but also has the eco. They've got to be on board. It's no good, Coca-Cola saying here's £1 million. Not that it's going to cost £1 million, because I wouldn't want to deal with Coca-Cola. So it's like you've got to try and find someone that fits really. So it makes it much harder to find a sponsor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, it's challenging getting sponsorship anyway. Yeah. And when you narrow it down to, you want to work with the right organisation with the right credentials. We
want a cool brand that is doing the same as what we are, but cares about the environment and wants to make a difference.
Yeah. And kind of going back to, like you said, you really want to see impact, right? You did the Cayman, you were promised impact. It hasn't worked out. You're still fighting that fight. What do you think? Is there anything you can do, do you think, to kind of try and maximise the impact? Because if you go and do this, which is an unbelievable thing, like to get the longest non-tidal assisted swim, you really want that to be meaningful. So what are your thoughts in trying to maximise the impact?
So luckily for me, I have realised that is not my strong point. My strong point is the swimming and perhaps inspiring the kids and picking up going and doing the beach cleans and getting all that into what I need to accept. And I'm very lucky now that we have a charity and the trustees, and we have people who are up for helping. So I need to let them help and let them help me in order to make sure that we make an impact. Because I had this very conversation the other day with the chap who's helping. Why am I doing the swim? I can't go and swim for 150 kilometres. No way, unless we're going to get something impactful. It's going to happen from that swim. There's going to be a benefit. Otherwise,
need
I just
that
won't. I'll
purpose.
pull out. Yeah, you're not going to get to the end. I wouldn't. Some people might be able to. I wouldn't be able to.
How long do you think it will take? 150 kilometres?
Anywhere between sort of 50 to 65 hours.
Yeah, so that is massive.
Crazy. Yeah.
Cayman's 37.
Yeah.
This is 55 to 60 or something.
Yeah. So crazy swim.
So like you said, you really need to be a man on a mission.
Yeah, and I need to have the support in order to do that, and nutrition needs to be on point. We need to have people helping me with that. There's no point me going out there with a case of bananas and some peanut butter thinking I'm going to achieve that swim, because it's not going to happen. Yeah, so another level, but I'd love to. And I know the thing is, I know I can do it with the right team and the right outcome. That I think I can swim that far. In fact, I know I can.
That's awesome. It's really inspiring to be sat across and hear you talk like that. You know, I'm excited that we got a little bit of an exclusive to hear about what these next plans are, and I'm really looking forward to following the journey. I'd love to be there actually when you do the Isle of Wight.
Yeah, man. Yeah, if you're around in August, you can come and throw some bananas. Maybe bring some other options for me as well.
You just tell us what you need.
Good man.
Well, we talked about a couple of the themes, and we've sort of touched on this a little bit before, but one thing I always like to talk about, a theme, is happiness. What is it? You know, how do we get it? And I always say to people, like, happy, it's such a small word, right? All the kids at school get taught that, one of your first words. But when you get older and you start seeing the world, it gets complex, doesn't it? Like, what? So I want to ask, like, what do you think, like, is the true meaning of happiness or fulfillment?
It's a massive question, and it is funny, isn't it? We throw the word around.
Yeah.
No, I'm happy. I'm good. Happiness is, for me, definitely that feeling or that experience of just being content. I think it's probably even in the dictionary definition, just being content. And I like to think of it as maybe I know a flat, calm ocean. There's no ripples in it or anything, and that for me is that content. That's happiness for me. Just being able to in them. I feel pretty good at the minute. I'm like content. I'm not worrying about anything else going on because I'm in the moment, and that is happiness. But the problem is, I don't think it. For me, it doesn't take much to upset that. There can be a couple of pebbles chucked in that might be, I don't know, something stupid. Like I can be in a car and there's loads of different conversations going. I get overwhelmed by that. That can ripple that little content mind of mine. Or the van breaks and I've got to worry about fixing the van. But I'm also quite lucky in that it doesn't take much for me to get to that state of happiness and content as well. So like my cup will be full just from going for a walk down the beach and watching the sun come up. That I'm 10 out of 10. That is me maxed out, happy as I can be. And I've realised that quite young, that the things that perhaps we think are going to make us happy that don't really do it for me, or certainly they don't take me any higher. That cup of mine is full already. So I'm lucky in that respect.
I really love that, because a quote I came across which I really love is it sort of speaks to that. Someone said, if you can't find happiness in a cup of coffee, you're not going to find it in a yacht. And I totally agree. Like, I'm exactly the same. If I'm running down the beachfront, you just feel like on top of the world. It's such a great feeling. And how lucky are we that we can get to that? Because I don't think, sadly, some people can't. I don't think they're able to get that content, that happy feeling very easily. But like you said there, you can go for a run and you're there, you're 10 out of 10. It's amazing. Doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't cost you anything. Said, no, but also on the other hand, it is difficult for me to get in that position, and I can be knocked out of it quite quickly. Yeah. But yeah, just watching the sun come up, going for a run with my dog in the morning, walking down to Chapman's Poole, looking out to sea along the coastline, I get goosebumps, and when I'm down there, and I think this is free. Yeah. So it's that kind of brings me on to the next question, because we want to promote the local area. I mean, I think we've talked about it a lot. I mean, it's an amazing place to live, right? We're spoilt, really. What's your favourite thing about living round here? And maybe it's Chapman's Poole, but have you got any other favourite places? You can't take that away from me. Just the coastline. There you go. It's just amazing, the coastline. And my favourite part of the coastline is actually probably between Old Harry
and Swanage. Swimming between. I don't advise it to anyone to swim between that unless you've got a boat with you. But just the cliff line, just the Jurassic Coast. I just living down here. I think we've got access to some of the most amazing, beautiful beaches.
Yeah.
And it's just that freedom of being able to get out on the coast. 20 minutes. I'm down at. You've got the beach. It's amazing.
It's incredible.
So lucky.
I haven't swum there, but I have paddle boarded under there, and it's incredible. Like you say, having that perspective, looking up, because you tend to be walking on the cliffs looking down, but to actually be down on the water looking up, it is incredible. Yeah,
we've got this most amazing coastline, and it just feels that we're spoilt really.
So similar kind of subject, but success. Again, talked about it a little bit, and you've been on a journey. As you sit here today, what does success personally look like for you?
Like you said, it's so similar, isn't it? Success and happiness.
Yeah, they're definitely related.
Yeah, I'd almost like to cheat. I think success for me is getting to that state of being happy. Can I cheat and say that?
No, that's a good,
because
good
that it kind of is for me. But again, it relates to all the things that can make that happen. So in order to be happy and successful, healthy family, healthy friends, roof over your head, comfortable. There's loads of things to make that happen. But success for me is definitely achieving that level of content that allows you to be happy.
Yeah, no, that's a really good answer. And we talked about like some of your mechanisms and things you do to get through these events. If we talk specifically about the endurance swimming, what do you think are like the skills that you've developed that have allowed you to do these things successfully?
ADHD. I can hyper focus on stuff. And I obsess with stuff, which has been a problematic throughout my life, and it still is to this day. But now I know the tools and things when I'm getting to a point where I'm like, okay, step back. But I can get in the pool and I can swim, 10, 20 kilometres, and I'm able to switch off because I'm just focused on that. The bubbles passing me, and I'm just on another planet, and I'm able to slow my mind down. And being able to, there's only very few things that enable me to do that. And swimming's one of them. So the endurance side of it is great because I'm doing it for hours and hours and hours, and I get out and I'm just like, meditation. It's just like it's my medicine. Yeah. So an endurance point of view, fueling as well. You've got to make sure you fuel the swims. I try and get to a point on the longer swims where I'm fueling them more through fats than carbs. So I'm not just burning through loads of sugar. I'm at a much slower pace, a slower rate. So I'm fat burning, and I think you can do that for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And if you combine that with a strong purpose, you can do it for a crazy long time.
and what are the you talked about ripples from all these events. What do you think like the ripples you're most proud of so far?
That's really tricky. Probably the effect it's had on my family, to be honest, and some of my friends that you'd never have looking, and you wouldn't do if you look at my childhood. The way I perhaps was not exactly probably the most compassionate towards animals and the environment, but it's the effect I've had on my family and friends, seeing the change that they've made. Like my granny will, she washes out her little plastic, keeps her plastic, and I'll pick it up from her, and she keeps her little tablet things and cuts them up so that I recycle. So it's those little changes that I see firsthand from my friends and family that have been really special.
Oh wow, that is amazing.
Yeah, it's been really cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I always finish with a feature I call Life by Misadventure, and I think like you might like this one because like I've always thought like in life you learn a lot of lessons from things outside of the normal, outside of school and outside of your 9 to 5, whether it's going out doing activities and you've done crazy stuff. I told you I'd played in bands and learnt so many things doing that, like playing in sports that you'd never learn just doing a normal job.
Yeah.
I just kind of wonder, like, what lesson have you learnt from all your crazy kind of experiences?
I think it's the lesson of the ability to slow down, to be honest, and try not to be 100 mile an hour chasing things all the time. One of the biggest lessons I learnt by accident was when was being more compassionate, though, to be honest, towards animals as well. I had a nasty, IBS. I suffered with IBS, and I was actually intolerant to dairy, and that kind of snowballed me down into looking at what I was eating as well. So that kind of opened up the whole environmental thing. So that was a big part of the journey as well. But and that was all by accident. I didn't. It was like, I got bad tummy. What can I do about it? I'll cut out dairy, and I felt better. And I started looking into what I was eating as well. Then I've been vegan now for 7 years, and I felt amazing on it.
Yeah.
And that was a big lesson for me that I learnt by accident. And as well, just being down at Chapman's that time and seeing all the rubbish and mess everywhere. That because I'd managed to take myself out of that 100-mile-an-hour lifestyle that I was living, I was able to slow down enough, and that was a huge lesson. Just those fleeting moments of, and they are fleeting for me. Being able to slow my mind down enough, unless I'm in the sea or in the pool, is really special. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I think that's a really great lesson, because I think a lot of people are in the same kind of, we're all stuck on the treadmill, right? And it's a good reminder for people to kind of step back and make sure they give themselves some time just to reflect and think.
It's really important.
We probably all need to do that a lot more, to be fair. Oly, sadly, that brings us to the end. It's been such a fun conversation, and I was just thinking when I was preparing, I think you're probably the most literal example of success on the South Coast that we've had. I mean, all the work you do, like you've swum the coast, you're working every day to protect the oceans. It's just incredible. So for people listening, what are the best links to kind of keep up with you and all your challenges, and hopefully get involved with sponsorship and stuff?
Yeah, awesome. I know I really appreciate coming in. I really appreciate what you're doing as well, getting people in that hopefully will make, and they're all such different conversations you have. I've been listening to them. They're awesome. So listen to this podcast.
Cheers, mate. I appreciate the shout out.
Yeah, man. I think so. We've got a couple of different socials. So if you just search projectplanet.earth, that's our website. That's our Instagram, Facebook. Have a look at the film and documentary as well. The Grand Swim. You can watch that for free. It's on a platform called Water Bear. The only thing they ask for, I think, is your email address. You can sign up for free and then watch that. Get in touch if you're interested. We always do beach cleans. We've got a monthly beach clean that we do as a group. I get out a lot more than that, especially in the winter when it's washing up. But yeah, we do a monthly one. So have a look on the website at our beach clean calendar. Come down, join us, pick up some bits, have some fun, probably go for a swim, meet some cool people. And if you don't want to come and meet us, you can go up for your own beach clean, pick some bits up, have fun, and just be a nice human to the planet. That's all we ask for, isn't it?
That's cool. And then we probably use this opportunity to announce the fact we're doing a little event down at Patch in central Bournemouth. We're going to be doing a screening of the film, so it's an opportunity to come and see it on a big screen, which I think is brilliant for people. It's better than watching it on your mobile. Kind of does the scale of the task, the challenge, a bit more justice, doesn't it? So April the 10th at Patch, which is above Bobby's, we're going to be screening the film and then doing a little bit of a Q&A, give people the chance to come down, watch the film, ask you a few questions about it. So that should be a fun night as well.
That'd be really cool. And you don't have to throw bananas at me that night either if you don't want it. Optional.
Do you want people to bring jars of peanut butter? Or
maybe.
not?
Yeah.
Like I say, Oly, for me doing this, it's just been so much fun discovering we got people like yourself in this area. It's just so inspiring, and I've really enjoyed watching the film, just finding out about all your adventures. So on behalf of all of us who live down here on the South Coast, I just want to say thank you for all the work you do. Keep on fighting that good fight, and thanks again for coming in today.
Oh yeah. Thanks, man. It's been awesome. Appreciate it.